Tensions once again rising across the Middle East. Israeli forces struck a Hezbollah command center and several other buildings in southern Lebanon Sunday night in response to gunfire from Lebanon, as the IDF says Hezbollah continues to violate the ceasefire agreement. Meanwhile, the Houthis in Yemen have vowed more attacks against Israel and the United States following a fresh round of U.S. strikes on the terror group.
The U.S. Central Command confirmed a second set of strikes against Yemen's Houthis overnight on Sunday, vowing to continue until the group halts attacks on international shipping. A video released by the U.S. military showed fighter jets taking off, though the location and date were unverified. The Houthi-run health ministry reported at least 53 people killed in the strikes, marking the largest U.S. military action in the region since Donald Trump's presidency. According to reports, the chief of security of the Houthis leader was reportedly killed in the strikes. Meanwhile, the Houthis have threatened a new round of attacks against the United States and Israeli targets. Last week, the Houthis said they would resume attacks against Israeli targets, citing solidarity with Hamas in Gaza.
And ongoing talks for a hostage release remain stalled in Doha, Qatar. So an Israeli team of negotiators are now in Cairo to see if they can push them forward. ILTV's Shosh Bedrosian has the details from Tel Aviv.
Lidar, the Prime Minister's office is now saying an Israeli negotiating team is in Cairo, Egypt, to continue these conversations, working to get a hostage deal secured. We know that there were deadlock conversations that happened in Qatar, in Doha, Qatar, where they were working on something called the Witkoff proposal. The team of Israeli negotiators and U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff were pushing for Hamas to release 11 living hostages at first, in addition to about half the bodies that Hamas is still holding captive inside of the Gaza Strip. They were hoping that this proposal would extend past Passover towards the end of April, and to release the rest of the living hostages in the second phase of that deal. We know, like we said, Hamas eventually said on Saturday that they would release Idan Alexander, the only American Israeli hostage believed to be alive. Witkoff, of course, rejected this deal, saying that Hamas is not sticking to the proposal, this Witkoff proposal that was on the table. And now we know that once this Israeli negotiating team returned back to Israel, Netanyahu was briefed by them and said they need to prepare for more conversations to take place. It's unclear of what will happen. So much changes by the day when it comes to this hostage talks that continue to happen, but we will continue to have all of the details here on ILTV. Lidar?
Thank you, Shosh. And a major shakeup in Israel as Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu moves to dismiss Shin Bet chief Ronen Bar, a decision that could have major political and security implications. More on this from ILTV's Mayan Hoffman.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has announced plans to dismiss Shin Bet chief Ronen Bar, escalating tensions between the government and Israel's top security agency. Netanyahu cited a lack of trust in Bar, but the move comes as the Shin Bet investigates alleged ties between the Prime Minister's office and Qatar, which is mediating ceasefire talks between Hamas and Israel.
בכל עת, אבל במיוחד במלחמה קיומית כזאת, חייב להיות אמון מלא של ראש הממשלה בראש השב"כ. אבל לצערי, המצב הפוך. אין לי אמון כזה.
Bar, who was appointed in 2021, has accepted responsibility for failures on October 7th, but insists he will only step down once the remaining hostages are freed and critical investigations are completed. His potential dismissal is expected to face legal challenges, with Attorney General Galia Barhav Miara already blocking Netanyahu from proceeding until the Shin Bet probe concludes. If Bar is removed, it would mean the heads of Israel's defense establishment during the Hamas attack, the Shin Bet, the IDF, and the Defense Ministry, will have all exited, while Netanyahu remains. Critics warn this could politicize the Shin Bet at a crucial time. Meanwhile, Netanyahu faces growing pressure over his handling of the war and hostage crisis. The High Court may ultimately decide whether Bar stays or goes, setting the stage for a legal and political battle with significant implications.
And now joining us for a special panel on the latest developments in the war in Gaza, the hostage deal, the Houthi threat, and more. Our former Israeli ambassador to the United States, Danny Ayalon, and Colonel Amit Asa of the Israeli Security Agency. Thank you so much both for joining us today. So, Colonel Asa, let's start with you and discuss, the top headline in Israel today, which is, of course, the Prime Minister's decision to fire Ronen Bar, the head of the Shin Bet, Israeli security agency. What's the significance of this decision, and why now when we're in the middle of the war?
First, we know that there was investigating the war crisis. And the Shin Bet was saying that there was any clashes in the abilities. So there is a responsibility for the head of the Shabak on this. And I think the most obvious thing is that he will have to leave his position. Of course, at the beginning of the war, we needed to do a lot of changes and a lot of operational needs in the Shin Bet during the war. So we decided, maybe they decided, the Shin Bet decided, the Prime Minister decided that he is going to be leading the Shin Bet in this war. But now we know that we stopped a little bit. We have a ceasefire. We changed also the head of the army position. So it's now time for us to say, okay, thank you very much. You failed, and you have to leave your place and your position.
Mm-hmm. And Ambassador Aylan, what's your take on this? From a diplomatic perspective, what effect will this move have on the hostage deal negotiations, for example?
Well, first, I think it's very deplorable to see such mistrust between the political echelon and the professional ones. As for the Shin Bet, it's one of the most excellent, I would say, security organizations around the world. Mr. Ronen Bar is also a very capable man. Yes, he did fail, like everyone else did, on the 7th of October last year. But so did his government, and the responsible for everything from the overall perspective is Mr. Netanyahu. Also, Mr. Netanyahu is under some investigations, and some people in his office, what is called the Qatar Gate, evidently some senior advisors of him allegedly received money from Qatar, which is almost an enemy state, helping Hamas. And the one that is, of course, vested with the investigation is the Shin Bet, of course. So for Netanyahu now, when he is actually in, I would say, conflict of interest, to do that is not becoming. It's, I think, very, very damaging, especially as you mentioned, we are in the midst of the war, and even worse, it's further dividing the population of Israel. There is not much trust, unfortunately, between those who are pro-government and those here who oppose the government. I do believe that those who oppose the government from all walks of lives are the majority. However, this government clings to power, and they are, unfortunately, running the country from a very extreme view and not from the center, as is the most effective. So this is not strengthening Israel when we do that. And also, the last word is that he will not succeed because he's in a matter of conflict of interest. Then I think the Supreme Court will strike any attempt to fire the head of the Shin Bet. Mm-hmm. Because the Shin Bet serves the country and the nation and not the Prime Minister.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's certainly an ongoing affair, and of course we will continue to follow. And of course it is a position of trust as well, and there's certainly a certain amount of distrust there between the Prime Minister and Ronen Bar. And now I want to turn, speaking of the hostage negotiations, Colonel Asa, I want to turn to you. A lot of rhetoric that Israel will return to the fighting should the negotiations fail. But so far, it's been almost 3 weeks since the end of phase 1 of the ceasefire. No hostages have come out, and the IDF is not going into Gaza. So what exactly is going on, and what can we expect moving forward?
I think that we know that we have to do the most to get out as much as we can, as many as we can, hostages alive or not, from Gaza. And the only way now to do it is by negotiation and some kind of a deal. Of course, we finished the first stage of the deal, and now there is a ceasefire without any deal. So who's earning from that is just the Hamas, because they are increasing their power, they are recruiting more people, they are building all the facilities for the war ahead of us. But still, I think that we are giving a chance for the Trump administration maybe to give us some kind of a deal, to make some kind of a deal that will help more hostages to come. I think it's a matter of a time. And also Trump administration, you can hear that they are losing patience from what Hamas is doing. Hamas is not willing to get to any point that we can agree with. So there is just a matter of time to getting back to war.
Mm-hmm. And Ambassador Ayalon, would you agree with that assessment? As Colonel Asa said, we have a new president in the White House. It's no secret that the Biden administration had major differences with Jerusalem. Will Israel have a free hand now to operate in Gaza with Trump as president?
Oh, no doubt about it. Not only the president himself said it, also his different people, whether it's Mr. Witkoff, the senior emissary to the Middle East here. And I believe that also there is a lot of frustration in Washington because of the Hamas attitude trying to actually drive a wedge between Israel and the United States. They will not succeed. But the fact that they have offered to free only American citizens, and there is one living and 4 more dead bodies, is something which, of course, nobody will accept, even not the United States. So it seems like the Hamas is actually raising the ante and is willing to risk it all because, as the president said, that if the Hamas does not release the hostages, then hell might reign over them. In any case, he said Israel will have a free hand, and unlike the administration of Biden, as you correctly mentioned, where we had restrictions on type of munitions, also on having to send our enemies humanitarian aid, which was looted and used by Hamas, and actually giving them the strength and power and the reason that they were still on their feet is because of this humanitarian. If war or the ceasefire breaks, then it's going to be a different rules of engagements and a different, I would say, rules of the game. And Hamas, of course, will stand to lose. We may risk here the lives of our hostages. So in a way, it's kind of a chicken now play between Israel and Hamas. But certainly for us, it's most of a moral issue, humanitarian issue, ethical issue. But if push comes to shove, I think that we may have no choice but to do away with Hamas, as should be in the first place.
I think if I can add another thing is what we have to say now, that is a very big change that the Israeli administration and Trump administration are going together hand by hand in full cooperation strategically. And this is a thing that we didn't see with the Biden administration. I think it's very important when we come to this kind of negotiation with the terror organization. And I think that the full cooperation, it's not just on the table, under the table. We know that they are Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu is working together strategically. Of course, Americans have their interests and Israelis have their interests, but everything is going with the full cooperation against the Hamas as a terror organization.
And Ambassador Ayalon, does this, cooperation also include Iran, the head of the Octopus, the Islamic Republic of Iran? President Trump has reached out to conduct negotiations, and he said he prefers negotiations with the Islamic Republic to war. What's happening on this front? Are we going to see a diplomatic solution, or is a joint U.S.-Israel strike potentially imminent?
Yes, well, I believe that there is no daylight between Israel and the United States, understanding that the Iranian Ayatollah regime is the most nefarious, the most ruthless, and the most dangerous, not just in the region, but even globally. And the fact that they are trying to breach all their commitments, international law, and trying to illegally obtain nuclear capabilities is something that no one can allow. Now, it is quite obvious that President Trump would like to start with with the possibility of a political solution. He wrote a letter to the Khamenei, the supreme leader of Iran, and we'll see what would be the response. In any case, if negotiations will start, I think this time it should be on American terms or on the international community terms, whereby it will be much stronger and much longer agreement that was during Obama in 2015. If this is the case, maybe we have a chance to do away with the nuclear capabilities of Iran or infrastructure without a war. But if the Iranians will play games and will not oblige, I think there will be no other choice than a military operation. And here, I believe that the U.S. should lead it. Israel can help a lot. Other players in the region and in the international community can also play. Iran is no friend of anyone here. It's actually the enemy not only of Israel, but of most of the Sunni countries in the area, and I would say the United States and the Western world.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And Colonel Asa, speaking of the Islamic Republic of Iran, let's talk about its proxies as well. So far, the ceasefire with Hezbollah is holding, though it's clear they are violating the agreement. And the Houthis are now once again threatening to resume attacks against not only Israeli targets, but international shipping. Are we heading once again to fighting another multi-front war?
Well, I think when we are talking about these regimes, proxies that leads from Iran, we have to understand that they think other way. They have not, as we call, it's not our way of thinking. They think like Islamic radical. They think not logical from our point of view, but they had their logic of thinking, and their logic of thinking is Islamic thinking. They will fight even if they will walk without shoes. They will fight until the end because that's what they think the best for the Islam. So when we see them launching missiles for the United States, it's not that they think that they are more powerful than the United States. Or when they are hitting Israel, it's not because they think that they can win the war. They think that the Islam will win the war at the end, and that will lead them to do whatever they want to make them strong and to make them big in the eyes of the Islamistic in the whole world. That's why I think United States is showing something in the Houthis area in Yemen, because you can maybe tell everybody that you will do something. You can say it again and again and again, but you have to do something. And I think this is a sign for Iran to see that the American not just talking, they are doing. And this is a very a good say for Iran. Be careful. We are aiming to you. This is just the beginning. This is just an example of what we can do. Do whatever you think you need in the negotiation, in the diplomatic way, because after the Houthis, we will come to hit you by our plane, by our force, or maybe with Israel.
All right. Well, certainly an interesting period here in the Middle East. Ambassador Dani Ayalon, Colonel Amit Asa, thank you so much for your analysis today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And in an inspiring display of solidarity, Steve Katz, a South Florida emergency room physician, is leading Jewish National Fund USA's Brotherhood mission to Israel, bringing support to communities devastated by the October 7th Hamas attacks. The mission assembled nearly 50 participants, predominantly from South Florida, who raised an impressive $1 million through grassroots community efforts. These funds are now being directed toward rebuilding the Israel envelope region, extending compassionate aid to Israeli citizens and addressing urgent and future needs across affected communities.
Most of us don't wake up and decide to raise $1 million for Israel, something that seems out of reach. However, one organization did just that, driven by a strong sense of purpose.
All part of one people, and this is not the time, nor has it ever been the time, for the Jewish people to sit on the sidelines.
But raising money for Israel is only one piece of a much larger picture. It's not just about financial support, it's about action. It's about rebuilding and reinforcing the strength of the land and the people. The JNF USA Brotherhood mission to Israel is a testament to this idea that helping Israel means being deeply involved, hands-on, in its growth and future.
You know, Jewish National Fund USA has really totally integrated themselves into all aspects of life here, particularly in the North and the South, really helping to reimagine Ben-Gurion's dream.
To accomplish all this work, to actualize the dream of leaders before us and the goals of JNF USA, Steve Katz led a group of almost 50 men to Israel.
And they're really a diverse group of guys who come themselves from very different backgrounds and different professions. But the bottom line is we are all brothers.
But despite the diversity among this brotherhood, they are just that. Brothers, all with a shared goal.
We're all here for the same exact reason, which is to support our brothers and sisters in Israel with hugs, with love, with volunteering, and by donating as much money as possible to projects in the state of Israel.
Steve Katz recounts how touching and inspiring this trip has been for him and for the members of the Brotherhood. And despite all their efforts, they remain humble and accept gratitude from others with a very special response.
The Israelis seem to feel the need to thank us for being here, which is so paradoxical for us because we feel like we're here to thank the people of Israel for everything they do.
This story is one of resilience and the power of the Jewish people, because ultimately,
we're all part of the same people. We're all part of Am Yisrael.
And as members of Am Yisrael, we carry a collective responsibility to ensure that no Jewish brother or sister is left behind, to rebuild what has been lost, to strengthen our homeland, to stand together against any force that tries to destroy us. Because our story is not one of defeat. It is one of hope, of strength, and of enduring unity.
And now, let's take a look at the weather forecast. Cloudy skies are expected around most of the country tonight, with temperatures reaching lows of around 18 degrees Celsius or 62 degrees Fahrenheit. Then tomorrow we'll see clear skies alongside warm temperatures, seeing highs of 26 degrees Celsius or 76 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's a wrap for today's news. For the latest updates from Israel on all your devices, be sure to follow our ILTV channels, subscribe to our newsletter, and explore our website, ILTV.tv. Stay informed with the latest news straight from the heart of Israel. I am Lidar Grave-Lazi. Be well, stay safe, and thank you so much for watching.